Um, what a powerful morning. We're making some great headway. And one of the ways in which I'm able to measure that within my own soul matrix is by if you will, the acceleration that I experience by what I become aware of, which is situational awareness. Hey, what's going on with your situation? Right? Is really a torque speed measurement. And one of the ways I'm able to sort of see how this works, and I'm sure a lot of you that are big into math and physics and torque converters and inverters, right? Between photons and electrons, photosynthesis bands, vibration and frequencies, is obviously, I use simple stuff because one of the ways in which I impart information by what I experience of what's held in libraries by virtue of what I'm choosing to hold in a library as a monopole, which is a circulation library, which means there's a lot of information or visual mathematical information that's no longer there that I have access to because I burned it off because it's no longer necessary. When you understand how you're burning off fake phantom timelines in order to do what? Pull soul fragments in, which is like, I don't like to use the word save, like save on, but it's integration is what it is, which means the higher the rate of speed, which is an acceleration speed of a torque converter, to convert something that is inverted or that is fake, that is a simulation, which means they're not experiencing real, living, eternal light, because it's so easy, but yet it's so hard for those that can't do it or don't want to do it, can't. It's sort of like this. You have free will. That's true, you do. But there is also the illusion of free will. And the illusion of free will is the illusion of X. X lives in an illusion. We don't live in an illusion. That's how you can know one from the other. As I've mentioned a gazillion times, at 4 years of age, which means you know what the truth is because we are the living truth. The living truth is living light, which is eternal light, because you know that without light, you wouldn't be able to see all the colors, all the color codes, the colors of the Rainbow Bridge, Rainbow 7. So you can see that as a copycat, which is a clone version of real living eternal light, okay, there is no mistaking what real light is. Okay? Real living light in living spirit with the soul is experiencing what love is. It's not, there is no either or. This is where the idea of binary, if you will, in a checkerboard game between black and white, there is no, in other words, you can't be one and the other at the same moment and know one from the other without knowing the one. So when you know the one, which is the knowing, we are experiencing being loved, which is being in a spiritual state of being, of experiencing love in our heart, through our heart and soul, with our spirit. When you're experiencing what love is, you're experiencing the center point or the point from which it all began. So now you know, by virtue of experiencing what you know, by which you feel through your heart and your soul, you're experiencing the truth. Because you're experiencing that the Creator, upon which you came into creation, loves you. So we began out of what love is. So when you're experiencing what love is, that's a timeless experience at the moment or the completion of a magnetic moment. That felt moment, which is an experience at that moment, when you're experiencing what love is, that's what we experience. Which means that's not war, that's not conflict, right? That's not, how would I put this? In other words, you're not experiencing anything else other than what that feeling was experienced as, because you're translating with your soul and your spirit the vibration that you're experiencing. So you know that you're experiencing the one, the one, the first sound. Because the speed at which it's vibrating is fired up, on fire, on fire. Light it up. You're experiencing that light by virtue of being in spirit, running that hot, that it's purifying the light that you're experiencing, that I'm experiencing, integrated with a soul that is experiencing the purity of that love, which is the purity of one.
Hey, Dad.
So the way that I sort of brought this up this morning has a lot to do with surrender, actually, which is surrender of self, so that self is in service, right? Service mode. I'm in service mode. So one of the ways that you can translate this across the entire spectrum, okay, and that is, let's just use an example, a model, if you will, of observation that we observe, right, here on the planet, if you will. So when you become aware of, like, through observation with your mirror, a particular being, let's just say one being whose energy is aware of what it's aware of. And this particular being, for example, has a mansion somewhere up in, let's pick a place like Aspen, Vale, Colorado, okay? That if you and I were to have a place like that we could go to, would cost you, let's say, $8 million, okay? A minimum of $8 million. And then you have the cost in which to maintain it, right? Because you know that over time, energy breaks down, right? Just like over the time between, say, January and January of one year, right? Through the seasons, right? And so what I'm sharing here actually is whether or not, because I did this myself, okay? I chose to have future experiences, as future is defined. For us, it's simply an experience. What are you experiencing when you know there is no time? When you're a monopole, you're a mated chip, which means there isn't any time. There's only what love is. Love is what real, because that's what we experience, being one, which means we're on fire. We're experiencing eternal, unconditional love through our heart. So we're always using our energy by default, which means the door is shut behind you. Okay. And once you've chosen to surrender your entire soul matrix energy with the spirit that is in the purified light, which is on fire, to serve forever, you can't fool the one. An oversoul will experience with the light that you are, which is alive and living in spirit, with your soul, have made that choice, which is choosing, and thus you become chosen, or if you will, the way Yellow Rose describes it, named up. Your name goes into the book, heaven's book, okay, upon which you've chosen to serve on behalf of the one, a God, the first God, if you want to perceive it that way. It's a eternal love vibration. So you're experiencing the one, eternity. And when you are just as much the flower, because you don't ever want to be separated from the grower side, from the flower side, then you're both. That's one. That means that wherever you find us in living spirit that is in that light, which is purified light, you will find us in living spirit with a soul. That means you're free to go. You can go wherever you want, which means there's no limits. There's no limitations to what you can experience because you chose that pathway to learn through all the other spirits that are in that light, which is what love is. It goes on forever, gifting the energy that we use to create what we thus experience through the use of that energy. Because the speed or the acceleration of the internal core frequency of vibration through which you are experiencing what it is to be experiencing what you're experiencing as pure love, which is pure eternal love that is on fire, to be gifting like a real star. But your star is represented by going on forever because that's the choice that you've made to do. So if you take the model of a particular being, for example, that has, call up, hey, a limo, right? Hey, I got somebody that, hey, listen, I'll tell you what, you want to have breakfast in Paris tomorrow morning? Call my secretary, tell her to book us on a flight, out of, Louisiana, New Orleans somewhere, and we're going to be at a particular XYZ restaurant in Paris by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Can you get that done for me? Sure. So you have all these other beings now that are working on your behalf so that you can experience that tomorrow, right? And so then what comes out of all this is that imagine that same being, that if you were to approach that being and say, listen, would you ever give that up in order to go down into a food kitchen, say in San Francisco, with people that have been vaccinated, right? That you're willing to share the same space with those folks and help out because you don't fear that, right? In other words, you're willing to go down into the trenches. You're willing to give up all that money, give it all away, and wish to serve on behalf of the one. So I'll give you a little nutshell and sort of how I experienced this one time when I was going to school at the University of Arkansas, and I had a relationship with a woman who was part Cherokee, and her son was a demon. Okay, he was into all kinds of crack, methamphetamines, drinking, alcohol. He's basically on self-suicide mission, right? So he was feeding on his mother's energy. I married this girl to try and give her a safe place, to try and restore her. So he tried to kill me on a couple of occasions. So you understand how that works, right? I'm Mr. Smith. And so what sort of happened out of this was that at a point in time when I was almost finished with why I was going to this particular school, which was the University of Arkansas, and when I was in this little house, I began having these images, and this naturally, it's not natural, but it's unnatural, but you're getting the communication about, because I had, obviously you have money, I had money, so I wasn't experiencing the way that it gets defined about energy and money as security. Now you're chasing the electrons, right? And I began experiencing in my own mind what it would be like if I lost what I had. And even what I had by some people's translation on how they measure value and energy by what we're experiencing in energy. I was just living in this small little shack, which was really an old motel that got turned into like an apartment complex I was paying like $475 a month, and it was just me that was in there. And the girl that I was a partner with was staying in a place on the corner. So we sort of separated from each other, even though we were living in the same place, so that I had a place to do where I could get all my schoolwork done, work, right? Because I was taking on a full schedule, right? And so I began having images of what it would be like. And the images that got triggered in me was actually a communication that came by way of a television set when they were talking about an increase in people that became homeless. And then I imagined myself being on the street, right? As if I had lost what I had in energy, which is energy security translated through money, and the material side, which is the matter side, that I was going to lose what I've been holding in memory. So in other words, I'm running this little pocket reality, which is based on the programming, right? So you're running the program, right? And then I began having images of what it would be like through the communication that was on the TV, experiencing myself being homeless. And it scared me. All right. Now, you can translate this on other experiences that I've shared. In 1972, when I had turned 21 years of age, when I went to the island of Kauai, and I landed with $10. That's it. And I wasn't going to have any more money, as it's translated as B spelled money, the Federal Reserve notes, like a musical note, for at least 6 weeks, right? While I'm on the island there, and I was motored down to the other side of the island where I was living in a tree house. And that's when everything went bang, when I opened up a big pipe, and everything that I was experiencing through the great living oversoul spirit of Mama Earth, now I'm experiencing her, and everything that's being provided for us, it doesn't cost any money. Now we're no longer dependent on them. And the level of my health and awareness and the torque speed differential began to accelerate in vibration. And why my mother realized when she saw me come back, wow, I've never seen you look so healthy. You're no longer eating their food. You're not held captive by them. You're no longer living in a city. You're living in a treehouse right on the beach, experiencing paradise, being with a goddess. Yeah, mama. So if you fast forward that to the University of Arkansas, and this was right around 2003 when this was happening, right? How it was over the last several years, I have found myself, for example, in Honolulu in a homeless shelter, okay? Downtown San Francisco in a homeless shelter when the COVID stuff was going down, right? In Reno, Nevada, in a homeless shelter when all this stuff was going down. A homeless shelter in both Medford and Grants Pass while all this was going down, right? So what this means is that would you be willing to give up everything that you have on the matter side, translated through money and the acquisition of energy, or electrons, if you will, as it's translated as money, and give it all away as if you're going to start over in the universe? Start from scratch, a clean piece of paper. In other words, I just came into the universe right now. What do you want to experience next? So now you get into the torque speed difference between what? Love and fear. And now we get into what I shared before about lighting myself on fire, which is being fearless. To give up all your energy, which is represented by our soul, in order to serve forever on behalf of the one. And if your soul is not wanting to release every single electron that you are holding in memory as a result of not having burned it off, it won't work. That's called total surrender of X to the Y. So you're never separated from the Y. So you become one. The law of least effort. So another way that this can actually get translated in both mathematics, density, and memory, and the difference between running on memory-driven program apps, which is called API, which is called an application program interface. A program interface with QI. And what that means is that it's like the applied sciences. I am going to apply my energy represented by my consciousness, which is running a supercomputer operating system on a set of instruction sets, right? That's right. And I am going to use my soul's energy and apply it. And apply that energy in which to serve forever as a universal or a multiversal hub server upon which you're one with all creation, gifting energy forever. And now you're experiencing how powerful your fire is that has purified everything that we've experienced since the beginning of time is gone. Whoa, I'm no longer held captive by time density. My spirit is free. Yes, that's right, which means that's called letting go. Letting go of what's been held in memory that holds us captive to a timekeeper. And that's one of the big messages that the trilogy, the Mr. Smith programs were trying to echo into the visible light spectrum in the mirror by saying, remember the scene with the timekeeper? Oh boy, they were sending everything after the timekeeper. And what? The keys. The key to the doors. And it's one of the reasons I love Aldous Huxley in a book that he wrote called The Doors. The Doors of Perception. And then you can get into Jim Morrison and the Doors, and who his father was with the U.S. Navy, and tie that into Alice in Wonderland or Wonderland in the Hollywood Hills back during the 60s, the 1960s. Yep. I love you all. Have a great day. Bye now.